This is Design Variety, the variety show for design professionals. It's great to be here with you. I'm the host, John Derrigan, and I bring with me a couple of decades of leadership and hands-on experience in the design industry. It's a huge episode ahead, so let's get started. Yes, user persona profiles. So much debate out there as to their effectiveness in designing products. However, in my personal experience, if you have the right approach and you're using the proper methods and informing those personas with the right data, they can be an invaluable tool in UX process. In this article, Fixing User Personas, Jordan Bowman goes through some best practices on the things that you can do to improve the quality of your personas and some things that typically should be avoided or practiced when you're doing persona profiles. And it looks at things like how many personas should you have? You know, the interesting part of personas is that our human nature means that if your product has a potential audience of 1 million people, it's very hard for us to wrap our heads around so many people. However, if you took those 1 million people and you broke them down into groups that have commonalities with each other, and you put a face to that group, and it's a face that you can see, a name that you can call it, characteristics and personalities and behaviors and needs and all of these other things that go into a persona profile, you as a human can relate to that one person that represents that group much easier. So if you've taken that 1 million people and broken that down into 3 persona profiles, geez, that makes decision making and targeting and what you should do with a design much easier to cope with. The article's a nice piece, and it's a quick read, well worth checking out. Randomly is a free online tool that helps with color theming, and it helps you to select the optimal color theme and then presents it on a screen with a side-by-side view showing what it looks like with content, both in the standard and inverted version, and also gives you access to the hex codes and CSS that you need to implement it into your product. The highlight feature of this, however, is that it takes into consideration accessibility. So each of these themes, as you go through them, are accessibility graded based on the level of contrast and readability of each theme. As you can see on the top, as I go through the various color schemes, it's giving it essentially an accessibility rating score along with its compliance rating. It's very nicely done, and in its about area, it shows you how when you change the level of color contrast, the score that's given to it reflects how the readability and legibility of the content is impacted. This is really important for any designer to be conscious of and to be aware that the color choices that they make affect usability. And this is a good website to kind of get a sense of, if we use a color combination, what is its impact to the end user's legibility of the content. Hot off the press from user interviews is a report that's titled The State of User Research 2023. And it's the latest installment of their annual report that gives a nice snapshot of the user research industry. So if you're a practitioner and you kind of want to know like what's going on out there and what are other researchers seeing from their perspective, great report. And I got to say, it's really detailed. What I like in particular about it is it starts off being very clear and transparent about the methodology used to create the report. So how they collected the data, how they analyzed it, even to the point where they give you access to the raw data and you can download it to inspect it yourself. I love that as a starting point for this kind of a report to give some transparency of how it was created. And from there, the report covers a lot of topics, and it's well prepared to show the statistics nicely visualized, and then a written summary giving some depth and some commentary on what they've seen in the data. And I think that the topics that are covered are very relevant. I think these are things that a lot of researchers are kind of wondering, and they'd love to get a sense of what's going on out there. An example of this is how much research is actually done remotely versus in person and on site. You can imagine that over the past few years, with lockdowns and so forth, we've largely been forced to deal with remote research. So what does it look like now that a lot of that is behind us and things are resuming back to normal? Amazingly, it's still almost 50% of research is done remotely. Another question that might be on the minds of user researchers is, what does the average team look like out there? How many headcount would you expect to have in a research team, depending on the size of the organization? What's the composition of that research team? And importantly, how is that research capacity integrated into the organization? Is it centralized? Is it decentralized? Is there some kind of hybrid arrangement? This is really important to know, and I think we want to be able to compare to other companies to see, is what we're doing in-house aligned with what the industry norms are. I think this is really beneficial information. Another piece of interesting data is highlighting this increased desire and consciousness around researchers wanting to know the impact of the work that they're doing. I think this is a really good telltale sign that there's a maturity in the industry. They want to see that what they're doing has a positive impact. And I'm not just seeing this in researchers. Many of the generalist UX designers that I talk to every day also echo the same sentiment. They want to know that their job has purpose and that their efforts have positive impact both to the end user and to the businesses that they work in. Overall, this is a really detailed report, well worth the time to come and have a look at when you have the chance. Stumble upon an interesting website, which is basically a starting point for people interested in UX and product design. It's a very friendly and approachable and simple website to get the basics and kind of a lay of the land of this profession. And all the topics kind of cover the essentials, and it's composed in a nice way with friendly illustrations and some light reading to kind of give you the sense of each of the things that you kind of have to think about. And they accompany this with some really genuinely, industry standard quotes from thought leaders and so forth. And it backs it up with nice reading lists and watching lists so that you can dive in and get much more deeper into the subject matter. It's a nice one just to get sort of a sampling of what it's like to be a UX designer. With websites and mobile apps gaining larger and larger audiences spanning regions and across the globe, localization has become a very important part of modern product design. And in this article called UX Localization, How to Adapt User Experience for International Users, it goes through a number of things that you can consider when localizing a product. One example is around the usability. Things that you may not even consider, such as iconography, having a huge impact into the usability of a product. Icons that maybe I or you take for granted as meaning something in particular may have different meanings in other parts of the world. And likewise, the UX writing of how things are worded, the terminology, can very much be influenced by local factors. So it needs to be written specific to how a common person would talk amongst each other and how things are referenced with terms and other things that may differ from region to region. It's an interesting article if you're trying to do localization. Augmented reality has really started to take shape. The various technologies that go into it have really started to mature, And so it's become an opportune time to start using it in various activities, experiences, and venues. One such venue is museums. And this is the topic of an upcoming online webinar put on by Lisa Lokshina. And it's part of an ever ongoing series of talks done by the UX Research and Strategy Group. And in this presentation, which is 2 hours, completely online and free to join, Lisa goes through some of the opportunities and challenges that are faced when deploying very modern technology into what we would all probably consider a very traditional environment of museums. I'd say this is a great way to join in and kind of get a sense of where the current state of this technology is and what are some of the UX and usability challenges that are faced when putting it out into such experiences. This should be well worth watching. Thanks for joining me. If you liked the episode, give it a like. If you loved it and you want to see more, subscribe and share it with the designers in your life. See you next time on Design Variety.